Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Cosmic Catchup. I'm Corri.
And I'm Dana. We're real-life sisters who said no thanks to the 9-to-5 grind and yes, please, to the stars, spirit, and soul-led living.
Around here, we're talking ascension, astrology, human design, sound healing, and the messy magic of waking up.
So if you've ever thought, there's got to be more than this, you're our people. Two sisters, deep talks, whole lot of magic. Let's catch up. Hey.
Hi.
We're a little weird today.
This is going to be interesting.
Bear with us, folks. We don't know what's going to happen.
Well, so we're talking about shadows today, and we have a little bit of the giggles, which probably doesn't quite go with the theme, but at the same time, sometimes you just have to laugh.
Well, and I also think, to your point, yes, we're very giggly, but we're also experiencing some shadows right now.
It feels like a million of them, actually.
All at once.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think whatever happens is going to happen today. So bear with us.
Yeah, it might be crap. Who knows?
So why don't we start with a astrological update on the transits, if you wouldn't mind, and then we'll dig into what is shadow work.
I love it. Okay, well, this is airing on the 25th of June, and we have the new moon in Cancer on this day. So the moon actually rules Cancer, so it's in its home sign. New moons, again, are all about planting seeds, manifestation, new beginnings, initiations. Beautiful time. We have a little mini stellium in Cancer, and a stellium is just 3 or more planets in the same sign or house. We've got Jupiter, the moon, the sun, and Mercury all in Cancer. And Cancer energy is one of the cardinal energies, meaning it's about initiation and creation. So great, aligned with the new moon energy. It is, Cancer energy tends to be very nurturing. It's a lot about self-care and also about the care of our loved ones in our lives, the important people, our home, our families, what it takes for us to feel safe and secure. So this is a beautiful day and time to just like be cozy with yourself, be gentle with yourself, take a lot of, whatever it is that you like to do to feel safe. The energy of this new moon, however, is also squaring, and that's a 90-degree angle, which is typically a challenge. It's squaring the Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So this can be a time when we feel like our divine feminine and masculine energies within each of us might be out of balance, to where there could be some internal struggles around taking care of what's good for me, but also this desire to like take action, but also receive, and maybe not being balanced in how that is activating within us. So struggling with words. So it can be a little bit of a challenge in that aspect. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the chart, but from that perspective, it can be a little bit of an intense day. So sometimes our emotions can get away from us at times like that.
That's me all the time.
Well,
remember, 53% of the population have a defined emotional solar plexus.
Yeah.
So emotions galore.
Ride those waves, baby.
Yep. Ride the waves.
One other aspect that is, I'm going to note right now, is that Uranus in Taurus is at 29 degrees, and that is the final degree of that sign, and it's also known as the anaretic degree or critical degree. So there could be a lot of shakeups. Uranus is all about surprises, and Taurus is about our financial markets. Taurus is about our bodies. It's about the earth. It's about our food. So there could be some shockwaves or surprising elements in any of those areas. And it doesn't have to be just today, because it's been several days, even up, some time at that degree before it moves over into Gemini. So a lot can be shaken up at this time. But yeah.
Well, maybe shake some shadows as well.
I think it does. This energy would definitely shake loose some shadows.
So that's really apropos for our topic today.
Yes.
So we are going to talk about shadow work. And last week was all about the dark night of the soul. And through the dark night of the soul, I think a lot of shadows can really begin to emerge, or I think maybe you take more notice of them having gone through that dark night. And shadow work is not a one and done. So Dana mentioned at the as we started, we are both going through some shadows ourselves. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But why don't we start with, what is a shadow?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to talk about it how I define it, but I would encourage everyone to go look it up and do your own research and feel about it yourself. But for me, when I think about shadows, my own shadows, they're typically tied to lower vibrational emotions. So hurt, anger, shame, guilt, stemming from some sort of trauma, usually some kind of wounding in our lives, or could be generational or ancestral or past life type of wound. So may not even be tied to something in this life. And that, when you peel back the layers, because that's the work part of it, is like clearing the shadow, is there's usually some sort of fear that underlines all of that. So whether it's a fear of abandonment or a fear of rejection or a fear of, lack or scarcity, whatever, it really can boil down to a fear.
Yep. Yeah. And I think you may ask, well, how do I know that this is a shadow? I think triggers. So if something triggers you to be angry, as Dana said, or fearful or hurt, anything that triggers you is likely a shadow that is worth digging into and exploring where that comes from. And I think that may be the hardest part sometimes, is trying to get to the root of where it stems, because I know working on some of my shadows, one thing triggers it, but then all of a sudden you start kind of going back and back, and it turns out it started when I was 6, for example. And so having to go back and clear all that way, and it could take some time.
Yeah. And to your point, you said we're never done. Yeah. Every time you think you're done, you're like, oh, there, I got triggered again. There it is. But the more work you do to identify them and heal them, then the quicker you recognize what that trigger is, the quicker you recognize that shadow, and the quicker it is to heal. And there's lots of ways of healing those.
Yeah, for sure. And through human design, and I think I talked about it on that particular episode, but using the Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, with all the gates that we have, there is typically a gift as well as a shadow. There's some other things too, but those are probably the two most common. And so you can even look at your human design to see, are you living in your gift or are you living in your shadow? And I remember as I was going through my gates, and again, it's an experiment, and I'm pondering and sitting with it. And there was a gate that is called the Gate of Breakthrough. And that's about having insights and wisdom to share. But the shadow is the gate of deafness. And it's refusing to listen or hear anyone else's perspective or thoughts. And I was like, ooh, that was me a lot growing up, and even some into adulthood. And so I had to really sit with that and recognize, was there did I move into my gift? And here's the thing too, we can go back and forth. To your point, the shadow work isn't always done, and it's really not done, especially when you think about the Gene Keys, until you hit the city, which is where you're living in a higher vibration all the time. And I don't know anyone who can do that right now. Maybe monks. So just know that that's something that is always going to be an area of opportunity for us as well. If you know and understand your gates, that's a good place to start. If you're like, I don't know what shadows I have.
Yeah, another good place to start from astrology would be looking at your Chiron, which is an asteroid in your natal chart, represents the wounded healer. So there's a lot of layers that you can uncover from a wounded perspective if you're like, I don't know where to start. And then once you talk about it, I'm sure much like the Gene Keys, you're like, oh yeah, I recognize that.
Yep. And we have the Chiron in human design as well. It's got gates. And we also have the unconscious Mars, which is where you're immature, and there can be wounding there, called your core wound, actually. So we look a lot of times at that in human design to see, is that an area? And my core wound certainly resonated with me. And the cool thing is with the core wound, once you, I don't want to say master it, but once you recognize it and start to heal it, it becomes your core talent, which I think is really cool. And it's much like the Chiron, I think, where you become an expert once you've hit that 50-ish year mark, where you can then help other people with that same wound.
Yeah. I like how it all ties together.
Yes. So I thought we might talk about some common misperceptions about the shadow.
Great. Lay it on me.
And I'm going to use my notes because I don't have it memorized. So one of the things is that people may think shadows are only about trauma. And that is not true. It can be about trauma, but also different patterns. So like for me, a big one is control. And I know I'm not alone in that. And actually probably all of these that I'm going to read, I'm like, yeah, that's me. Self-doubt, judgment, or suppressing gifts, being afraid or ashamed to show, who you truly are. And so that suppression, and a lot of that often comes as children. And so as we suppress those things, that can create shadows. So that's the first one.
I like it. Yeah, all of it.
2, it's dark and depressing. And shadows can be dark and depressing.
It can be.
But
and then they can make you laugh too.
Right. They can be very intense, but there's light through that shadow. And so it can be very healing. And I think that's part of the reason that you want to work on the shadows is because when you come out, even if there are longer term, sometimes I think you can work through, depending on what the shadow is. It doesn't have to take a really long time. But you just feel so much better and so much lighter. And so obviously when you see you're not triggered anymore, that to me shows, hey, I've worked through that. And it can be very uplifting to feel that way. Let's see. And we already talked about this. Once I do it, I'm done. No. Because as we grow, new layers grow. And so there could be, again, I think there's always going to be some sort of trigger. I think you talked about even on one episode where the traffic triggered you.
Yeah. It can be light things, little things. And again, that wasn't a deep core wound about missed time management over here. It was just like, oh, okay, I see it. Yeah. I was like, okay, I really am not angry at these other people. I'm mad because I didn't manage my time well. And okay,
that's right.
I can let that go now. So it doesn't have to be super deep either.
Yeah. I mean, again, yes, there's going to be different levels, I think, of your shadows. Okay, what about if I do the work, I'll fall apart or lose control? And the reality is avoiding your shadow actually creates more chaos because it's going to build like a volcano, just get more and more difficult until you really do explode. And so the more you can dig into that shadow and start working on healing it, the likelihood of then exploding is a lot smaller. It means something is wrong with me. Nope. It just means you're human.
Well, and if anything, I feel like it means when you start down this journey of work, you're actually raising your consciousness and becoming the more authentic version of yourself. So it's actually a good sign.
That's right. And it shows how strong you are because you're willing to hit those challenges head on and conquer them.
Yes. Very brave.
It's about being hard on myself. No, it's not about shame or feeling bad or berating yourself for working out or having these shadows. It really is about compassion and love. And that's the only way you're going to work through the shadow is having love for yourself. And especially as we talk about the inner child and working through all of that, love is the highest vibration, fear, lowest vibration. And so you have to work through those lower vibrations to get to the higher. And then, okay, the last one, if I stay positive, I don't need shadow work. What do we call that, Dana?
Toxic positivity or Sagittarius.
Yes, and also can be called spiritual bypassing because thinking you can just, it's all love and light without doing the work is going to end up backfiring on you. It will delay your healing. So don't do that.
I mean, you can if you want to, but
well, you can if you want to.
It's not recommended.
I would avoid that if possible. So should we share some of our shadows that we're working on?
I mean, I feel like that's why we're here. So yeah, do it. What are your shadows that you're working on? You said some were coming up for you recently.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of ongoing shadows. So I would say, especially now being officially an entrepreneur, financial fears come up. and I recognize them. And so it's been an ongoing work. It doesn't trigger me nearly as much as it used to. And I can look back years ago and remember feeling pure panic. I don't have that anymore. It's just more of a little niggling of like, so should you be concerned? Like it's more of a conversation than an all-out attack. But that's something that I continue to work through, and I think that could be a little bit generational, to be honest with you. I don't know. I think there's a lot of conditioning in society that makes us feel like if we don't make a certain amount of money that we will be destitute, and I do not actually believe that to be true. But I think there's just so much conditioning societally about having certain, financial success is what creates potentially worthiness.
Well, clean it up.
Excuse me as I spilled my tea.
I'm like, don't just stare at it.
What do I do?
I mean, it's a plastic table. It's fine. But I'm like, we're just going to look at it?
Yeah. I was in the midst of
a thought. We
Yeah,
have interrupted your thought.
Let me take a drink while I'm at it. Okay. So I think, and that's it. I guess what I'm trying to say too is with society, there's so much conditioning and so many shadows. I think you can easily start there with digging into certain triggers. And I think having the nice car, the nice house, or, the schools your kids go to, or where you live, those are all triggers. If you don't feel like, if you're in your head, you're thinking, I need a better car, I need this, you don't. So you need to dig in, where does that come from? And a lot of times it is through financial insecurity, I think.
Yeah, and I think financial or scarcity and lack fears stem a lot from a lack of worthiness.
Yes.
And when you talk about it, definitely it's societal, and we can go down the path of the debt slavery system that we all find ourselves in and have been in for, decades, if not hundreds of years at this point. So that's a deep-seated thing that most of us share. But when it comes a lot to, I think all of us may have some level of worthiness, self-worth, trauma, or wounding, especially those with their Chiron in Taurus, because the sign of Taurus is specific around self-worth and finances and possessions and what we value. So one way, and there's a whole generation of people that were born with Chiron in Taurus that it may manifest. There's many ways it can manifest, but one of the ways it can manifest is a lack of self-worth. And I definitely have and continue to explore that within myself.
I feel the same. And a lot of it is, for me, it's self-love, and that comes from the G Center in Human Design. And you and I both have an open G Center, right? Do you have an open one?
Yeah.
So feeling lovable, being loved, ties into that self-worth. And that's something that I've struggled with, again, my whole life, not surprising because of that open G Center, but that's a shadow that I even now, because as you talked about, when you leave your job, that is so much of your identity. Who are you now without that? Now, I feel very confident in knowing the direction I'm going, but there is a little bit of that uncertainty, which can trigger that feeling of lovability, self-love, self-worth. And so that's a fun one I'm working on too. And part of that tied in is and many women go through, which is our weight and
body image. Yeah.
Society has taught us that a certain look is what's appropriate when, again, so we are easily triggered by needing to look a certain way, which is not the case. But for me, my weight has, especially as I've in perimenopause and the things I used to do, and didn't have a problem with gaining weight, for example, whether it was what I ate, I've always exercised, but now I feel like I'm doing all the things. I'm exercising all the time. I'm eating the right things. I've cut out, no alcohol. I've reduced sugar, no dairy, no corn, none of the good stuff. And yet here I am, right? And so I'm now digging into, is there further childhood trauma associated with that, because I know our bodies also hold on to fat in protection. So that also could show up through my self-love and not feeling lovable. And so it's trying to protect me, right? So again, it's not always the thing, like stop eating the thing or doing the thing that's necessarily going to allow you to release that weight. It could be internal. It could be emotional that's holding on. And so that's really what I'm exploring right now through my own body image. And I'm not trying to get to where society sees me, but I'm trying to get back to where I felt my best.
Yeah, your body's personal ideal shape and weight.
Yes, exactly. And feeling strong and good and confident. And so I think there's a lot of shadows attached to that. So every day feel like I'm trying to chip away a little bit. It's hard.
It's really hard. And I applaud you for doing the hard things and exploring it, because it isn't easy for sure as well. Yeah. And
what about you?
So
how about your shadows?
I have lots of shadows too. Along with the emotional piece, as far as our bodies are concerned, through the ascension process, our bodies are being upgraded with light codes, DNA activations, all kinds of neutrinos and energies flowing through us all the time right now, that not only can it be, diet and exercise, and if you're doing all the right things there, and now you're going to explore the emotional trauma and wounding that might also be tied to it, there's also another level that the body might just need the extra weight to make it through, to feel safe and secure and grounded on this planet as we're ascending. So through all of that, you might just have to wait it out.
That's a really good point. And I have been working really hard because, again, society says get on the scale and it's measured by pounds and all the things. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I talk to my body, because again, our body has its own consciousness. I talk to my body. I tell my body how much I love my body. Because here's the other thing too. Our bodies are made of 70% water cells. And if you talk self-hate and anger and frustration, those cells are going to just get, and probably continue to hold and hold and hold. And so working on that self-love and self-talk, and I'm now at a point where I said, you know what? This is the amount I'm going to lose by the end of the year, and it's just going to happen. And I'm going to keep doing what I do. Squirrel.
Sorry. I was looking for the book because it's in this room, and I did just see it. It's The Hidden Messages in Water.
I was going to ask you, and I thought, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Because it's in this room. Sorry, that's where my eyes were going. I was like, this book is in here somewhere.
Like, is there a bug? What's happening?
There's books all over this room. I know it's in here. The Hidden Messages in Water, which is the scientific study of that water contains consciousness and memories and understands language. So as you're talking about how our self-talk is vitally important.
I'm so glad you found the book, because it's a quick, easy read.
Mostly pictures.
Yeah, highly recommend. And there have been different studies. His is about, I think, frozen water, right?
Right. So one of the experiments might be playing different types of music to water. Then they freeze the water, and then they look at the crystal formation under microscopes of the frozen water.
That was my...
Yeah, that was, I know, I love your face. I was like, for those not watching, might be listening. Oh, yeah. That's hard to articulate, but I was just going to let you keep going.
Well, yes, that's a good point. But there have been different studies. So to that point, there have been music, words, all different things. And so recognizing that if we do that to ourselves, that's really jacking with our insides, and we don't want that. So I've just told my body, hey, this is how long you have. Get to work.
Oh, you put a time limit on it.
Oh, I sure did. And you absolutely can do that. It was a generous time limit.
Yeah. No, I'm just messing with you.
Generous time, because I've been like this for quite some time, and I'm like, okay, I'm done now.
Yeah,
I'm done. It's time to move on.
Yeah.
So I digress, but anyway.
Well, and we'll get into the healing of the shadows and all the things you can do with that soon. But yeah, we can talk about, definitely words make a difference. Self-talk makes a difference.
Yes. So what about you? You have any shadows you want to
I
talk
have all
about?
kinds of shadows.
So like what?
Well, you triggered some. But that's why you're in my life.
Yep.
We talk about this in human design. I have an open throat, which means I can just kind of talk nonstop at times. I'm pretty good about it. I recognize that for the most part. But you mentioned sometimes I can be a little verbose and I can ramble. And I know this about myself.
But you're pretty.
Thank you. I know this about myself. So that came up, some feedback I received came up, and I had to dig a little bit. It wasn't like a huge trauma because these were things I've dealt with in the past, but it was like a reminder of finding the balance between just being my authentic self and being okay with that. So a lot of my shadow can stem from hiding, not wanting to be seen, and being sort of in the shadow, not shadow work, but like in the shadows, like out of the spotlight, and trying, now in this stage of my life of allowing myself to shine and allowing my light to come through. And so hearing that, oh, you kind of squirreled the whole conversation, or no, that's not what you said, but a lot of what I heard was like, okay, how am I going to then balance trying to shine and be my authentic self and being okay with if I ramble versus how do I shine my light and still be concise?
Well, and you have wonderful things to say. Just sometimes you say them for a really long time.
And repeat the same point, which is unnecessary. So I appreciate the feedback. It was justifiable. But then I had to go and examine myself to say, okay, how do I balance that?
Yeah.
We're just going to practice and see what happens.
Has there been, because I think both you and I, we've been battling a lot of shadows that we've known about for a really long time. Has there been any new shadows that you're like, oh, well, where'd that come from?
Like unexpected shadows. That was one I think that was a little bit unexpected because I have done some work on allowing myself to be seen. I say an affirmation every day. We're doing this podcast. I've posted I've had my astrology business for several years and I post sporadically. So apologies if you're following and you don't see anything on social but I've made a few videos and I put stuff out there. And in doing that, I was getting more comfortable with seeing and hearing myself. So that kind of stuff doesn't really bother me anymore. This type of thing doesn't bother me anymore. So I felt like, oh, I've done a lot of work in that area that has been healing. And then getting some feedback. And again, it was justifiable that I was like, oh, ooh, there's still another layer in there. Okay, well, let's go explore that. I think that was one that was more surprising. For me, I also have to really explore anger because that is an emotion that I have repressed in myself a lot throughout my lifetime for various reasons. But allowing myself to be mad and to be okay with being angry and not falling into the spiritual bypassing, like, oh, everything is love and light, and I'll just positive my way of thinking out of this feeling. So being able to accept my own anger and allow myself to feel that, and, not to act out in unhealthy ways, but to say it's perfectly acceptable to be angry about things like seeing chemtrails in the sky. Like usually I'm like, oh, just neutralize that, whatever, send my power up to it. But the other day, I got mad. I was just like, why are we still seeing this? And then it made me laugh because I was like, oh, you do have anger. Okay, you've been kind of keeping it down and let's let it out. And it's in a healthy way and, not in an unhealthy way, but allow myself to be angry.
I think that's a really good point. I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I've mastered my trigger if I'm not angry, if I'm not sad, if I'm not hurt. No, because you can repress those emotions. It's good to have the emotions because once the emotion comes out, it's usually like, okay, now I'm done.
And you're really good at that.
I'm very good at that.
You let it out and then you move on. And I stew in it.
I do have to let it out. And I hopefully no one's in the way when I let it out.
Yeah, for real.
It's scary.
You're very good about that. So that is something I take from you is like, okay, I can let this out and then let it go.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to control me.
Yeah.
I think when I repress it and ignore it is when it starts to take over.
Yeah. Well, any other ones you want to share? Or?
I mean, I have all the body image issues like everybody else. Being self-employed, as you mentioned. Not so much money coming up right now for me, but a lot of do I need to be doing more?
Yeah.
Am I not doing enough? And at the same time, I'm also like, I feel really busy, but I don't want to be this busy, but I'm not doing enough. And should I be doing more? And that story in my head is like, okay, you're not producing something, so you're not worthy, or you're not earning something, or this isn't successful. So a lot of my time has been spent trying to redefine what that means, and also sit in with this Jupiter in Cancer, try to sit in the receiving mode of like allowing the universe to provide for me exactly when I need it, and being okay with trusting the unknown that you brought up. So that's a lot of where my time is being spent with my shadows right now.
Crazy. It's like we're the same person. Maybe we are. My core wound is in gate 40, gate of aloneness, which can have a hard time receiving. And I too am really struggling with that. And as a projector, I'm thinking, much like you, I'm way too busy. I don't want to be this busy. I need to rest. But if I'm already busy, how the heck am I going to take on any more clients or do all the things? And it's that hustle. I'm like, I'm not meant to hustle. So how's this going to work?
Well, then I have too many days of rest. I'm like, oh, now you're lazy. That self-talk that we're trying to correct. I was like, oh, now you're lazy and you're not doing enough. But then it's like, but maybe it's not time. Maybe you're just supposed to sit in this and be okay with it. So it's a lot of back and forth and up and down. And these aren't triggers where I need to go cry it out or anything. It's just more of like, okay, I'm catching my thoughts and I'm trying to redirect them. And can I tell you a side story?
Sure.
I know you love them so much. That's why I was going to ask permission.
Yeah. Good job.
So as we move into thinking about, okay, how do we start to correcting these shadows? I was out to dinner with a couple friends not too long ago. And, they're working full time, doing what they need to do. And we're catching up on our lives. And I'm hearing the stories. And I'm thinking in my head at the same time, like, oh, I rode horses today. And I'm wearing my pretty dress. And I took a nap. I mean, it was like, I love my new life. I love my new life. And
they're probably like, and this, and this, I'm so stressed out.
Talking about, just the things. And I've been there, 100% I've been there. And I want to hear these stories from my friends. But also in my head, I'm like, oh, and in that moment, and this is not a bad term, but feeling like I'm the universe's trophy wife. Like, that's how I want to feel. I want to feel like, and trust that the universe is the one, which is also my higher self, providing for me. Mm-hmm. So can I hold, and it was just for a few minutes, but I'm like, I try to tap back into that memory when I get down into this, like, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not worthy enough, or any of that stuff, to try to remember that I am practicing being the universe's trophy wife. Meaning, I love that. I'm going to go play, and again, not in a bad way. And the universe is going to show up for me and provide at the right time.
I do agree with that. And I think we know that to be true, but it doesn't stop the triggers or the shadows from coming up. But I think what you've succinctly said is catch yourself. Once you catch yourself, you can much, much more quickly adjust and adapt because you recognize that shadow. So let's talk about how to work on shadows, because there's a multitude of ways, and it doesn't require just one thing or months or years necessarily. Sometimes, like some of these that are really deep-seated are going to take a long time. But I would say on the shadows that I've worked on, I can absolutely see a difference. And so even, like I said, financially, I used to be triggered to, I would freak out and even like lose my mind over it. Now I'm like, okay, I feel a little uncomfortable, but like it will pass. And I recognize that, and can see it for what it is. And so I can see the growth in working on those shadows. So what are some ways that you have, a variety of different shadow work? Talk about some things you've done.
Yeah, I think when I first started on this journey, the healers that I went to played a big role because they taught me a lot of things. So I'm just going to pass on knowledge that has been shared with me. I didn't invent any of this stuff. But the idea of there's different kinds of guided meditations that you can go through, and there's plenty of free ones out there on YouTube that will take you through, whether that's healing inner child work, letting go of stress or trauma in the body. There's lots of that.
Let's talk about inner child real quick, because we've mentioned that a few times, and there may be people who are like, I don't know what that is. So when we say inner child,
you want me to explain it?
Well,
you were starting.
You brought it up. So
a lot of our wounds and trauma, the deep ones, can stem from childhood. So you have many inner children at different ages, depending upon when you experienced this type of wounding. So if you were to close your eyes and imagine yourself as a child, notice what age you are. You can be 3, you can be 5, you can be 7, you can be 14. And whatever age that is, there might have been a significant event that happened. So I think the first inner child I worked with was my 7-year-old self. That was when our parents split up. So, and 7 is a very formative age. It's your first Saturn square, but anyway, it's a very formative age. So that when I was working with a healer and we did a meditation together and I closed my eyes and she said, picture your inner child, I pictured myself at that age. And then noticed how she felt, and kind of in it from a detached perspective of, I'm the adult now, I am safe now, let's look at this as a child. You can, if you can't remember what you look like, you can get a picture, like look through old photo albums if you have those. And so I went and examined everything that my 7-year-old self was going through. And then what you want to do is you want to show up for your inner child as the adult and the parent of your inner child, because maybe you didn't have the parent that you wanted or felt like you deserved or needed, but now you're in a space that you can be that parent to that inner child and let them know that they are safe and they are cared for and that they don't have to carry that wound or trauma anymore. And then you can imagine whatever that wounding is being transmuted in the light of source. So that's one way of working with your inner child.
And I would say something that we've seen a healer for what we call emotion code. And I went down that rabbit hole. My researcher dug in and I kind of got obsessed with it. But emotion code is another way that you can really learn about those emotions and the specific age, because it will take you back. And it gets a little bit tricky, and it is a little bit trippy as well, because we work with spirit to understand, okay, what emotions are you holding on to? And you do one emotion at a time. It can be hours you can go through, and it will pinpoint an age, and it can also be ancestral. But you find that emotion and then where you're holding it, and you can also find where it is in the body. So I've been doing that for my weight as well. But you can dig in, and so you could find out that there was an emotion of fear at age 7, for example, and then you would have to go back and think, okay, what happened at age 7 that would cause that fear? And it's amazing the things that will come up. And I know when I did it the first time, there was stuff from like grade school. And, questions would start coming. Okay, well, where were you? Was this at school? Was this at home? And you kind of get to pinpoint, and all of a sudden you're spouting out something you hadn't thought about in 20, 30 years, and it's now coming to the surface. And so we're able to clear that emotion. But I think sometimes they can be very deep, and it's worth doing a meditation on top of that, even if you clear the emotion, because I think there could be some stuff there. But anyway, so that's another way you can kind of work with and understand some of that childhood trauma, than to work with the inner child to clear it and love that inner child again.
Yeah. I think quantum healing hypnosis therapy, QHHT, which was the Dolores Cannon method of past life regression and quantum healing, essentially of going into past lives and healing trauma that might be affecting you today. That's another great way to do, or, work on the healing. After, like I said, multiple kinds of meditations, whether that's working with the violet flame of transmutation to transmute and release any of these wounds and trauma. There are simple things too, like in the moment of a trigger, tapping on your thymus, and the Opo'opono Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, which I'm going to butcher, but this is the way I say it, is please forgive me. I forgive you. I forgive myself. Thank you. I love you. Very simple. You don't even always have to know what the cause of the trauma is. Sometimes you can just say, I'm feeling this and I'm ready to release it. I don't need to know where it came from or why. Some of the trauma you do need to recognize and acknowledge before you let it go. Some you don't. Just kind of depends. But there's that Opo'opono and tapping. There is, we learned from Jenny, one of our mentors, was the clear, cancel, delete. Like, I'm just clearing, canceling, deleting any contracts, anything that's of this wound. I'm ready to let it go and just be done with it. So it doesn't necessarily take, as you said, months and months to clear things. Some deeper things can take longer.
Yep. There's cord cutting. There is journaling. We've talked a lot about journaling. So there's
sound healing.
Sound healing is great.
Breath work.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways to clear it. And I think I'm going to use the word have fun loosely, but kind of had fun just trying all the things and playing around with it. And you can try all the things and see what works best for you, what you feel most comfortable with. And like I've done emotion, I like do it all. I want to do it all because I don't want to hold on to things. And sometimes we don't even know what we're holding on to, which is that emotion code helps bring out and QHHT helps bring out. So, yeah, there's a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of it has to do with your own intention too.
Yep. Agreed.
Because you're the master of this. And when I talk about going to see a healer, to clarify, that individual is not doing anything to you to heal. They are embodying, embracing, and holding space at a certain vibration, healing vibration, that allows you as the participant to decide if you are going to step into that vibration and heal yourself.
And that's spot on. We have the power to heal ourselves. And so for anyone perhaps in a victim mentality, it's time for you to decide, are you done with that? Are you gonna sit in it for a while, or are you done with being the victim and then stand in your own power and start to do something about it? Because no one can do it for you. And even as a life coach, I'm not there to fix it for you. I'm here to help bring it up. I may actually trigger you, right, with different shadows. And the whole point is to help bring up what is no longer serving you so you can work to heal yourself. Because once you do, that kind of gets you to the next level, right? And there's always going to be triggers. There's always going to be something that's going to come up. But then the question is, how are you going to handle it? And so it's really important to recognize that you own that.
Yes. I think the benefit of going to see a coach like this is they can provide you with tools to help you then manage through it and work through those things. But yeah, nobody can do it for you.
Yep. So is there any reason that people would say, that seems scary, I don't want to do it?
Well, yeah, they're afraid.
Duh.
Why would?
Well, how do you get not afraid? Like, can you think about when you started digging into yours? Like, what?
I think it was really that dark night of the soul of, I am tired of feeling this way. I want to experience more joy and fun in my life. And I'd reached a place where the only way to get there was to do the healing work, was to do the work. And I think anyone who sees a traditional therapist as well, they're going to give you homework. But if you don't do the homework, you're not going to get anything out of it. So I was at a place that it was time. It was like, okay, I can sit in this space and be completely miserable, or I can take control of my life. Those are my choices.
Yep. Yeah, I think you can stay in your comfort zone, but then you have to accept
whatever misery you've created.
Yeah, it's yours. So own it. And you can live with it, or you can move on from it. So, okay, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Can I tell you a weird dream I had? Not the one I just told you.
Sure.
So this was an interesting experience that I had. So I have a very active dream life generally. Not always prophetic by any means, but this was a very visceral dream because I had experienced paralysis, and there's like a sleep paralysis thing that actually happens, but long dream. But the important part was at the end of this dream, I thought I was awake because it felt like I was like kind of in that lucid dreaming state of where I was sort of half awake laying in my bed. And I heard and felt kind of someone come into my room, and I live by myself. So, and this figure, this dark figure crawled onto the bed and like was holding me down. So a little bit of a freak out, right? But I was only sort of scared for a moment because it spoke to me and said, you have to forgive me. You can't stay mad at me. And then I woke up and I was able to move. And I was like, what just happened? So I immediately went into meditation, and the information that I got from my higher self was that was a big shadow aspect of myself that I was judging, that I was holding in shame, that I was angry at this aspect of myself, that I needed to let it know that I wasn't angry anymore. So I continued in the meditation to then like called that shadow back in, and I gave it a hug, and I told it that I wasn't angry anymore, and that I did forgive it, and that I loved it because it was a part of me. So I think then it absorbed. It basically kind of absorbed back into me. And I think an important aspect of this whole conversation is to not fear our shadows, but the only way through them is to love them because they are aspects of ourselves, and to send them light and to send them compassion because we all deserve that. And we don't have to be afraid of our shadows. They're just pieces of us that need love.
I mean, beautifully said. And it was a good story. I love it.
I have a few.
You do have a few. So maybe I've got some human design transits for the week. And since we're talking about shadow, I thought I would go over where some of the planets, the sun, are in. And again, it's not good or bad. It's just there's a gift side and there's a shadow side. And so this week, I wanted you all to be mindful of what shadows might come up based on where we are in the collective. And so the sun is in gate 52, and it's called the mountain. And so really it's all about stillness. And that's really hard to do, and it's in the root. So it can be really hard to do, and the root turns on and off. It's adrenalized energy, so it kind of pumps on and off. So the idea is this pressure to be still and to focus.
Hard for me.
Hard for a lot. And I think you and I both have the gate of focus, which is also known as the ADD gate. But it's also when we put our minds to it, we can't focus. Now, see, squirrel, you've got me sidetracked. Anyway, so gate 52, the shadow frequency can show up as restlessness, hyperactivity, or paralysis. You may feel tense or overwhelmed. And so, and the sun is 70%. So it's kind of a big deal. So again, the shadow, it could be stagnation, pushing too hard without clarity. So just be mindful of that. That could show up in a big way. People can overwork, freeze, or feel stuck. So I think probably a lot of people are already overworking. So this may compound it further. The Earth is gate 58, and it's the beautiful gate of joy. And this gate is all about vitality, which is beautiful. But the shadow can be a little more critical and more perfectionist energy. And so people may focus on what's wrong instead of what's right. And yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a big one. So the collective sense could be of it's not enough, and picking apart flaws instead of seeing the progress that you're making. And so be mindful of that. So Mercury, which is communication, is in gate 56, which is the storyteller. And you and I, do you have that one? I think I
do.
have that one. Okay, I was like, I think we both have that one. So it's really about the gate of storytelling, stimulation. In the shadow, it can bring mental restlessness, scattered thoughts.
Hence this podcast.
All the time. Empty chatter.
Me,
hello.
You. Yeah, here we are.
But it could be, again, the shadow could be collective ADD. So bouncing from topic to topic without depth or meaning. I don't think we do that.
No, we don't do that.
But we
Much.
might. We did a little bit today. And then Mars. I brought up Mars because, again, Mars is the immaturity. It's like the kid brother. And it is in, probably by the time this airs, it'll be in gate 40, which I mentioned is the gate of aloneness. That's my unconscious Mars. So right at home, it's the energy of the lone wolf, can feel overworked, unappreciated, unwilling to ask for help. Me. And the shadow is, well, the gate, I should explain what the gate of aloneness is. It really is about filling your cup before you can go help others. So you need time to be, I call my little bubble, to rest and recharge. And then once you're done, you can go out and give to others, not from your cup, but from the overflow. So it's like the excess you have to be able to give away. So the shadow can be tension in relationships. People want to crave connection. They're afraid to be honest, or feeling too depleted to show up for other people. So then our Venus is gate 23. That's the gate of assimilation. So it's trying to make sense of information. It's simplifying abstract into something that you can digest. I also have this gate. It's a very popular week for me and my gates.
You are being set up for success.
Or just have a lot of it. So in the shadow, it can show up as mental pressure to explain, prove, or justify your value. And I'm in that shadow a lot. Communication relationships can feel strained, especially if people are feeling misunderstood or undervalued. And so the shadow theme is all about over-explaining to maybe be accepted, hiding your truth because you fear others won't get it. That's me all the time. Or trying to fit yourself into someone else's understanding. And then the last one I'll go over is Saturn, which that's the we've talked a lot about, but an astrologer I listen to always calls it Granddaddy Saturn, even though I think it's a feminine energy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, the planet itself really isn't feminine or masculine.
Oh, it's not?
But the ruler, Saturn rules Capricorn, which is earth signs, and earths are a feminine energy.
Okay. So maybe that's probably where it comes from.
Yeah.
But I like the term Granddaddy Saturn because it's like it's strict, it's firm, but it's loving.
I call it the adulting planet.
Okay.
So similar energies,
similar.
like the ones that about responsibility and discipline and getting your crap done.
Yeah. So I thought I'd bring that forward, and that's in gate 25, which is the spirit of the self, which is beautiful. It's about unconditional love and spiritual integrity, but the shadow can bring cynicism, coldness, detachment, and that's from your own heart or from, source, universe. So the shadow is disconnection, people feeling hard and closed off, or again, spiritually numb. So those are all kind of intense. So the shadow summary, so let me just tell you real quickly.
Break it down for us.
Emotional moodiness and avoidance of deeper truths, restlessness and anxiety from feeling stuck or directionless, criticism and a sense of not enough, scattered thinking, mental overstimulation, exhaustion or martyrdom from overgiving, spiritual numbness or a loss of interconnection, and over-explaining to be accepted. So again, these are not things that are going to happen. It's just the shadow side that could show up if you are in a lower vibration. So you might witness, maybe it doesn't happen to you, maybe you're witnessing it. And so it's just to be mindful. It hopefully will pass.
It will pass.
I mean, the planets do move at different paces. And so we'll come in and out. But hopefully you'll be in the gift of that instead. So some ways to be mindful or integrate is pause before you react, and especially 53% of the population, emotional solar plexus. So ride the wave before you respond. Focus on what is working versus what is broken or your perception of broken. Simplify your mental input to reduce overwhelm. This noggin is thinking all the time, and so I constantly have mental pressure, and so it's being mindful of, take that down a notch, simplify what's going on. Honor your own energy levels, and that's really, really important. That's really what you need to do all the time, is honor your energy levels and recognize if you're exhausted, then take a break. The stuff that you need to get done will still be there. and return to your heart. So check in with your own spiritual compass and make sure you're connected to the way you need to be connected and not worried about other people or the things going on around you.
That's beautiful. And a good heads up just for what we ourselves might experience or what the people around us might be experiencing. So ultimately, have love and compassion for yourself. Lean into that Jupiter and Cancer of just self-care right now. It's a big deal.
Yes. I like self-care every day personally.
Me too. It's my favorite thing. I mean, every day is self-care for me.
For sure.
Let's just be real. I am the universe's trophy wife.
You need that self-care.
I do.
So I thought we'll close with an affirmation, but I thought I would pull a card because we said we would try and pull cards every week. So we'll see what we need to know for this week. And it's the card of abundance.
Ooh, I love that one.
I love it too. And it's flowery.
Flowers.
I feel like it pretty much says it all. This is an opportunity, again, to recognize abundance. And that, as we work through the shadows, it's also important to recognize the beauty that we have and how amazing we are as human beings. And so instead of focusing on all the negative, like we talked about, the negative self-talk, as you work through those shadows, find the abundance in that as well and recognize all the beauty and the gifts that you as a person are made up of, because God created you and you're very special. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that, especially because of the conditioning and the shadows that we're seeing. But we are in God's image, and so you're pretty amazing.
Beautiful. It's a great read.
Thanks. So how about the affirmation?
All right. I don't have my glasses on. So
Would you like me to do it?
No, I got this.
Okay.
I honor the parts of me I once had to hide. I am safe to feel, safe to heal, and safe to come home to myself. Absolutely beautiful. And then you can say, I'm the universe's trophy wife.
Yes. You know what? I think that's going to become the new saying.
Hashtag.
Universe trophy wife.
Try to make it fun. That was the other thing about inner child, is like play with your inner child. Take them out and play. Like do the things you loved to do when you were a kid.
Yeah.
That's important.
I love that. I love to swing. I need to go
swing.
All right. Well, that wraps it for shadow work today. Hopefully you'll join us next week. We haven't decided on the topic, so we'll all be surprised.
It'll be super fun.
Hope to see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for catching up with us on the Cosmic Catchup. If today's episode sparked something in your soul, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share the magic with your fellow seekers. You can hang with us on Instagram at the Cosmic Catchup for behind-the-scenes updates and more cosmic goodness.
And if you're feeling the call to go deeper, we offer personal guidance through our individual practices. All the details are in the show notes. And if it's aligned, we trust you'll feel it. Until next time, keep following the magic. The content we share reflects our personal experiences, insights, and opinions. We're not medical, legal, or financial professionals, and we encourage you to always do your own research, trust your intuition, and seek guidance from qualified experts when needed. Take what resonates and leave the rest. This journey is yours to explore.